Eric, we don't know yet, but the Senate is not going to be a blue wave anyway. It may be evenly split. Who knows at this point? Or Republicans may maintain their majority. And then in the House, it didn't go the way that Speaker Pelosi was hoping. In fact, there could be some additions by Republicans. The presidency, the betting sites have flipped and now look like they're favoring Vice President Biden because of maybe gains he makes in Michigan as things go along. So I guess I'm just summarizing it's divided government, and the market's up so far. Do you think that's what Moelis and company would say?
I tell you, I am breathing a big sigh of relief when I'm looking at what the Senate is probably going to look like. With the fact that you've got Susan Collins hanging in there and probably winning in Maine, and at that point, and Joni Ernst in Iowa winning, that means no matter what happens in the North Carolina seat, assuming the two Georgia seats come back to the Republicans, which I assume they will, then that means that Mitch McConnell will still be the majority leader in the Senate. And thank goodness, because I really think that, the Democrats completely overplayed their hand in proffering this extreme agenda on issues like oversight in terms of the labor laws, in terms of the environmental laws, and my goodness, on taxes. So all of that extreme stuff in terms of the AOC and her squad, I think that did them in. And so I think in terms of where I see, our clients, thank goodness, in terms of taxes, they're not going to be looking at this extreme agenda that the Democrats were talking about. And I think that bodes well for the economy.
The market really wanted stimulus, too. So is there going to be any more stimulus in a lame duck session?
Well, obviously, Joe, tempers are going to be flaring a little bit. And I'm sure that Nancy Pelosi does not, if given her choice, she would not want to deal with President Trump if she didn't have to. And I think if she'd been given her druthers, she would try and wait to see how all these recounts go. And if they go for Vice President Biden, then she'll wait to try and strike that deal. But we'll see. I think if we can see Donald Trump pulling this thing out, I think there is a likelihood that the markets will see a stimulus bill done in December with the expiration of the current fiscal funding to get it off the table. But obviously, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty going in the next couple of weeks. But I'm just breathing a sigh of relief. And, to your point earlier, Joe, the pollsters it is inexcusable and reprehensible for what has gone on in that industry. As you know, in my unscheduled departure from Capitol Hill, a lot of it had to do with the polling universe that was estimated prior, which put me double digits ahead. Same thing here. But now what's happened is pollsters, they're not even being transparent as to what they're assuming in terms of an electoral turnout, which is why you've gotten such skew in these polls. And I think people relying on that, setting their expectation, is just abominable. I mean, how in the world can that industry maintain its credibility at this point?
So we don't know the presidential outcome yet. I'm just wondering, work with me for a second. You talked about if President Trump were reelected, what do you do? If it is Vice President Biden and with his Vice President Kamala Harris, what would that look like? And I'm even just thinking now about the next 2 years because there's a House election that. I'm sorry to bring that up, but we got to start getting ready for the next election. The next election, we got to start handicapping that, right? Unbelievable.
Listen, it really is unbelievable. But look, I think that what would happen if you did have a Biden-Harris administration. Clearly, President Biden would have to go in and work with Leader Mitch McConnell in the Senate to get anything done. Essentially, the Senate would be in the most powerful position as far as any kind of legislative gatekeeper there. But on the regulatory front, there's a lot of power in the administration and the White House, clearly. And just as President Trump did when he went in to office, he began to overturn and undo everything that President Obama had done on most issues. Same thing President Obama did when he came in 2009 and undid everything that President Bush tried to do. And we're going to see sort of this flip-flop now in terms of in this pendulum swing to the extremes on the regulatory front if that's what happens. But again, you're not going to have this extreme movement in terms of statute and the Green New Deal and the taxes that were called for. All those things would have been so detrimental to the competitiveness of our country, our businesses, and certainly the clients that I'm talking to, I know will sigh a big sigh of relief on this, with the fact that they're not going to see those kind of things put into place.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.